In this section, I'm going to talk about the different digital marketing tools available to you. I'm going to give you a nice overview of each of the tools, some things to think about when you're using them. And then in the next section, we'll match those tools up to individual business objectives so you can begin to see how to put your plan together. But first, let's take a look at what's available to you. Because as I said earlier, there are a lot of choices. Number one on your digital marketing radar has to be your website. This is where all your digital marketing begins and ends. This is where every message should start. Yes, you're going to be active on social media, but your content should be here and then link to it from social media. If there's a sign up for your email list, it's going to be on your website. If there are announcements, they should live on your website. And these days, you really need to consider that a significant portion of your audience is not going to view your website on a big desktop monitor. They are going to look at this on their phone. And your website has to be absolutely rock solid on mobile. Before you start advertising, before you start doing anything else, make sure that your website looks good and responds well. And then you've got to start thinking about content. What are you going to put on it? Your main pages are not going to change very often. Your home page, your About Us page, your product descriptions. But that doesn't mean that your website is going to be static. Whether you use the blog function for true blogs or just company announcements, events, news, you need to have a steady stream of new information. That's what keeps human beings coming back. That's what keeps search engines coming back. And that's where your blog really plays an important role. But when I talk about content, it doesn't begin and end with your blog. You also need to consider videos. You need to consider resources, things people will download, frequently asked questions, how-to guides, case studies, maybe even video or podcasts. These days, there is a lot of video, particularly on social media. And not all of that really needs to be featured on your homepage. It's not necessarily good enough for the homepage. But including that video in a blog post is a great way to make the blog post more interesting. And then there is advertising, SEM. These are search engine marketing. These are the paid ads that you run to drive traffic to your website. Now, SEM has a time and place. But before you start developing ads and throwing money out there on Google or wherever to drive traffic to your website, you want to make sure, go back to point one, that your website is rock solid, that you've got great landing pages for people to come to when they see an ad, that you've got good conversion forms, that you have logical next steps. Make sure that your website's rock solid before you start experimenting with ads. And SEO. This is an ongoing activity. This is the things that you do to make your website more relevant for search engines. Why? Because if search engines don't think your website is relevant or interesting, they're not going to direct people to you. Now, I don't believe in obsessing about a keyword or a phrase. I think that in general, what you want to look for is an indication that your organic traffic is increasing, that more people are finding you online and they're coming to you. But at the end of the day, you need to think about, what are those words? What are people looking for? And is that information on my website? Will Google find it? Will it be relevant? And will people come? Because if you don't do a good job with SEO, you have to spend more money on SEM. And then there's display advertising. And this is really exploding in all sorts of different forms. It is buying ads online like you would buy them in a newspaper. It's finding magazines on online websites that have an audience that you want to reach and positioning your business in front of those customers. This is tricky and often hard to manage or hard to measure. But if you're in an industry where there are trade publications and online communities where your customers are hanging out and you know that they're hanging out, this is definitely an avenue to consider. And finally, let's talk next about social media. Every time I turn around, there's a new social platform. Some are better than others. You don't have to be everywhere. You need to think about, where is your customer? Yeah, it's cool to be a TikTok celebrity, but if your audience isn't on TikTok, maybe that's not the best place for you to be. So you need to match where you go with two things. Number one, where is your audience? But also, where is your audience when they will be receptive to your messages? So let's take a look. First off, 45% of all adults say they're active on social media. So again, this is a place you need to be. One of the challenges is that in the early days of social media, well, it was free. You could put a post up and you could reach hundreds of people. On most of the platforms today, the algorithms have been tweaked. You might see a few company updates. Some of your friends might see what you're sharing, but the reality is the vast majority of people are not going to see your content unless you do a little bit of advertising. And almost every social platform seems to have their own spin on ad buying. Some ad managers are easier to use than others. But these days, if you're serious about building an identity online, you need to be serious about at least incorporating a little bit of social media advertising. And reviews. This is online gold. If you tell me you're a word of mouth business, this is your word of mouth. This is where businesses are talking about, or customers are talking about your business. So you want to invite people to write reviews on Facebook, on Google, on LinkedIn, wherever you are. You want to have people saying positive things about you. Well, what if somebody says something negative? They're going to say it anyway. Be polite, respond. You don't have to resolve the issue online. As a matter of fact, the sooner you can take that conversation offline with a simple, I'm sorry you're disappointed, let's talk. Not, I'm sorry, how do I make it up to you? Because that just opens the floodgates. I'm sorry you were disappointed. Let's talk, here's how. What that does is it shows people that you value the feedback and that you're willing to resolve issues. And then move on. And then invite 2 or 3 of your best customers to write good reviews. And finally, email. This is one of the most valuable tools in your entire toolkit. Why? Because this is the only place that you can absolutely control the message, control when it's delivered, and monitor exactly what people are interested in. It gives you an opportunity to go back and have those conversations without distractions. When I'm on Google, when I'm on Facebook, there's always other stuff in the screen. But when I open your email, that's the only message I see. And so email is really where you close the loop and stay connected with all of the people that you're meeting along the way. And before I close out this section, I just want to remind you that in the online world, just like in the real world, you're not alone. And so as you're thinking about all of your social media, all of your digital marketing, all your blogs, everything that you're planning on doing, I want you to take a look at some of your competitors. This is not to say that they're smarter or better than you are. This is simply to give you an opportunity of what other people are doing. And so pick two of your competitors that you trip over a lot. Figure out, where are they online? How big is their footprint? How engaged? Are they doing a good job? And if they are doing a good job, what are they doing? Where else are they marketing? And what kind of information are they sharing? And do this for, again, 2 or 3 of your major competitors. Go through any platform that you're thinking, well, maybe I'm going to go to LinkedIn. Then take a look at how your competitors are acting on LinkedIn. And use this planning and measuring as an important part of your overall strategy. Okay, now's a great time to go off and do a little competitive analysis, get organized, and then come back for the next lesson where we'll talk about how to select the right tools for your business objectives.